Well, the Biden administration continues to insist that the mystery drones that have been spotted over parts of New Jersey, New York, and elsewhere are neither a threat to public safety nor national security, while at the same time stating that they still don't know where they're coming from or who's piloting them. So how can they be so confident that they're not a threat? Joining me now to discuss this, Congressman Glenn Grothman, who serves on 3 House committees, including the Oversight and Accountability Committee. He represents the 6th Congressional District of Wisconsin. Congressman Grothman, welcome back to the program. Always good to see you.
Good to be on the program. I wish we were taking a topic that I had more hard answers about, but let's dive into it and see what we know and don't know.
Well, I mean, everybody's talking about it. I even talked to the House Speaker about it this morning, and he hadn't gotten any information. So what's going on here?
We have had staff meetings with Homeland Security, the FBI, the FAA, the Department of Defense, the Department of Energy, any agency you can think, and nobody will give you an answer. All they will say is they don't think it's a threat. And they'll say, there's nothing here that would merit ever shooting one of these things down. So you have perhaps hundreds, certainly more than 100, of these drone-like things, and they won't even concede they're drones, that some of them may have a person in it, apparently. They say they're the size of an SUV, and it's been going on for 3 weeks, and all the plethora of agencies, of 3-letter agencies involved in this, their attitude is it's no big deal, it's not a threat. They won't say they're American. They won't say they're foreign. They won't say, are they a threat to, well, I assume they believe they're not a threat to other aircraft in the area. But it's very frustrating that this many government agencies are to some degree, and the state agencies in New Jersey are to some degree involved in this, and nobody knows anything. I'm getting a little bit maybe ahead of myself here, but I'm afraid it's just one more thing we've got to wait for poor President Trump to get in there and clean up, because we should know.
Yeah, we should. I mean, and I've said this before as we've been covering this throughout the week, is if they don't know where these are coming from and who's piloting them, then how do they know they're not a risk? But if they don't know this, either they're incompetent, in that all of the technology we have, we cannot find out who and where these things, who's flying them, where they're coming from. Or the second option is it's actually our government doing something and they're just not wanting to tell us, or they know something and they're not telling us. So it's either deception or they're just incompetent.
Right. And if it is our government test flying these things, and why would it be that? Why would you test fly them over populated areas in which they could crash, in which I would assume they could run into a helicopter, an airplane or something or other? And why would you be doing it over what now is up to a 3-week period? So it's very frustrating. And we had a private briefing a while back. We've now had briefings with staff representing just about every congressional committee you can imagine, and no matter who goes before them, they say, I don't know, we don't think it's a threat, but we don't know what it is, so how can you even tell whether or not it's a threat? As you mentioned, we don't know what it is. It just is, I think, a problem with the government.
Yeah.
It just is so bad, it's beyond belief. None of these agencies will say, hey, this is it, here's a picture of it up close. Here we're going to shoot down one of these things unless, they bring them down, whatever. They could announce that tonight, right? Tomorrow we're going to be shooting these things down. That'd clear them up quick. But
it's like the Keystone Cops.
Right. And contempt for the American public.
Yeah.
I mean, I would certainly want to know what's going on in there, and I live in New Jersey. Total contempt from Congress, because so many Congress, including myself, members of Congress, have asked questions of these folks, and they refuse to answer questions on this or almost anything else.
Well, considering how the Biden administration handled the Chinese spy balloon, I'm not surprised by anything. It just seems the doors are open. Of course, the southern border is open for invasion, so why not the East Coast to drones? Hopefully,
I'm sure if we look, the people in charge of this are diverse.
So yeah, true. Let me ask you this final question on this topic. Is there some expectation that next week when you return, before we get to the Christmas break and Congress adjourns, that we'll have some answers?
I would be surprised. It seems like they're beyond embarrassment. I mean, if you worked for any one of these agencies and you were listening to this and all the news media are asking questions about this and all they can say is, after 3 weeks of this, I don't know. I mean, they look like complete fools. On the other hand, they look complete fools today, and it hasn't caused them to say anything. I guess it comes down to the degree to which I think the national media keeps this story going, which they should, and see whether there's any shame in them whatsoever, and they tell us what they are. Because how could you not know what they are by now? Biggest in SUV, flying all over the place, 100 miles an hour.
Like I'm saying,
wouldn't you by now know?
If we don't know, we have a serious flaw in our defense system in terms of allowing something this size to fly into across our eastern coast border.
Well, this is why we don't like government doing anything except for our defense, where we have no choice but to lean on the government. But it's just further evidence that the government can't get anything right. And the utter contempt for all these appointees of the Biden administration for the public, right? Yeah. They don't care. We don't care if we look like fools. We're not going to tell the people what these SUV-sized things are flying over their house.
Well, you mentioned the national defense, so let's switch gears for just a moment. Yesterday, the National Defense Authorization Act passed the House with bipartisan support. There were some good things in it. There were some not so good things in it. There were some bad things in it, but all in all, it had broad support. Your thoughts?
Well, I mean, you kind of have to vote for it because we've got to keep the defense going, and it'd be worse if we had more Democrats voting for it. Be that as it may, I think we're doing a bad job right now. I think we're buying stuff that in this era of missiles, this era of drones, it seems like we're preparing for the last war. And by the last war, I mean even World War II. I'm continuing to be disappointed. They build these big aircraft carriers. Nobody can tell me in this day and age that against a real military, China, Russia, even North Korea, that these big, relatively stationary military platforms are not exceptionally vulnerable. So I plan on voting for it, but I'm very disappointed in the military, somewhat disappointed in the committees that came up with this product, and that we continue to spend huge amounts of money on relatively static platforms, and our country is more vulnerable all the time to things like an attack on our electric grid. I think Congress has done not really as good a job as they should have done, but I know, these ships and other things are made in congressmen's districts, and some people feel that, bringing home the bacon is, I guess, well, like I said, I would write a different bill if I was writing the bill.
Well, let's talk about going into the 119th Congress, as you made reference to President-elect Donald Trump. Do you have expectations that we're going to see significant changes in actually addressing some of these issues, with Republicans having a working majority in the Senate, not having the 60 to breach that 60-vote threshold, and having very slim margin in the House, but nonetheless having the House, the Senate, and the White House? Do you have high expectations?
Well, it's got to be high expectations, because this may be the last time as a country we get all three. And you're right on a lot of bills, because we don't have 60 votes. We won't be able to pass them. But through reconciliation, we can do a lot of good things. The question is whether we will. Me, on a personal level, I think the country really has never recovered fully from the Great Society in the 60s, in which the government may be giving $15,000, $20,000, $30,000 to a young mother to make sure she's not getting married. And we've gone from about a 5% rate of Americans born without a mother and father at home to over 40%. So we've really devastated the American family by what Lyndon Johnson did. I think it's time for the Republicans to take a whack at that figure and try to encourage more two-parent families. That's what I'm going to be looking for over the next few months. I wish more Republicans would make that a priority. I wish our conservative and Christian press would make it more of a priority to get rid of these programs that are basically keeping the men out of the family.
Right. Well, you get more of what you pay for, and that's what we've been paying for, and guess what? We get more of it. We'll join you in that effort, Congressman Grothman. Thanks so much for joining us today. Always great to see you, and if I don't see you before, have a very Merry Christmas.
Love to see you.